When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Welcome back to Draftvice. We're here again with Mr. Harry Van Ness. We had to get him back on.
Yep. It's lot to talk about today.
It's exciting. Super exciting.
Yep.
Because, I don't know if you guys know this. You guys already have heard about this. I've even posted about it. Jamal Adams was traded to the Seahawks. Yeah. So today we're talking about the Seahawks.
Yes, for 2 first-round picks, which wouldn't be bad if your team actually knew how to draft.
Yeah. Let's get into this, because actually the Jets have a lot of things that gone on today. Also, if you know, there's the opt-out clause.
C.J. Mosley.
Yeah, so C.J. Mosley
who is now the Jets' best player after Jamal Adams was traded.
Yeah, I mean, it was looking like that he was going to be their best player. So now C.J. Mosley has opted out for this season. His contract's going to toll till next season, supposedly. He's got a big contract on them anyway. Damn it, man. Jets are in a very weird bind. They did get... Let's talk about the trade first. We're going to talk AFC East today. Then we'll talk a little bit of AFC East and AFC NFC East. Right. So, all right, let's talk about how do you feel about this as a Jets fan with the Jamal Adams trade?
Now a former Jets fan.
Wow.
Yeah. Jamal Adams, he was the only reason I even watched anymore. Them drafting Sam Darnold over Lamar Jackson, I knew that would be bad. That was sort of the beginning of the end for me, but kept watching because Jamal Adams put 110% in every play, and he looked like he had potential to be top 5 safety of all time. Not of this era. I'm talking about all time. And when you get a player like that, you have to do what you can to make him want to stay. And quite frankly, hiring Adam Gase as your head coach, I don't blame him for wanting out. So
yeah, I'll be the flip end of this, and I've been very pro trading. I'm not pro trading him. I'm not pro trading away good players. What I am for is getting value, especially when you are so like I said before, and I did this. We talked about this before. I've posted about it. I think the number one option here was extend him and extend him for a good deal.
Yeah.
Jets were not interested in doing that. Okay, fine. If you're not doing that, you don't plan on doing that, you clearly have an unhappy player who's played at an all-pro level. You're not getting the real value out of him. You're not getting a value of a contract extension. The second best thing to do would be to trade him for as much as you can get.
Right.
And I think they got as much as they could get.
Wonder who else I blame for this? Bill O'Brien. Why, you ask? Because one of the teams on Jamal Adams' list were the Houston Texans. And what does he do? Trade fucking DeAndre Hopkins for peanuts. So if he just held on to him a little bit, he could have gotten an all-pro safety, and the Jets could have gotten arguably one of the best receivers in the game. But
all right, so let's look at this from the Jets' point of view, right? 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick and Bradley McDougald for Jamal Adams and a fourth-rounder. All right, Bradley McDougald's a solid safety.
Right.
2 first-round picks is a lot, right?
It is.
Now, granted, Seahawks are usually picking at the back end of the first round every year, so it's not a high-valued first-round pick. But if you want
first-round pick nonetheless.
It's a first-round pick nonetheless, and if you want to move up and down the board, again, you got that extra third-rounder. Joe Douglas has been utilizing draft assets to move up and down and to gain draft assets to be able to draft more players. So a first rounder this year, there's 2 different ways to look at it, right? You can look at it as 2020 is going to suck anyway. Who knows if we're going to win? It's all a crapshoot because guess what? We are, everybody can get sick one week and COVID might just torch the season.
Watch. I could see Sam Darnold getting COVID week 2, like he did with Mono.
Back-to-back years.
The only dynasty the Jets are going to be experiencing.
Yeah, so that is a risk, and there is an argument that that's a good calculated risk to say, listen, we know that we are not going to be playing we don't think we can play to win this year. Maybe we can, but it's going to be more of a crapshoot than usual. It's not, we don't have, if all our guys are healthy, we don't always know that they're going to be able to play because of COVID. Let's kick the can down the road a little bit, get some draft picks. Now, the reverse end of that is having a 2020 draft pick might not be that great of a thing either.
Yeah.
Because there might not be college football this year. So you also have the reverse end of it where they're going to be doing a lot of their drafting based off of, how a particular player, a player did last year.
Yeah, and college players, they do improve dramatically from like one year to the other.
Because you're not always getting playing time.
Like 2018 Joe Burrow was Matt, 2019 Joe Burrow, Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, so again, you don't always get to see them. The whole point of them not coming out, now there's going to be guys like Trevor Lawrence and guys who you're looking at, but there's going to be a lot of guys who, if they got to play a full season this year, when they're coming out, nobody knew. Like he said, Joe Burrow was one of them. Nobody was even thinking about Joe Burrow this time 2 years ago. It happens every year. Guys kind of pop up. You even look at the Jets' own defensive line. One of the guys they took just 2 years ago. Nobody was talking about him the year before because he was a rookie. He's a freshman, so he wasn't playing. The Alabama defensive lineman. Why can't I remember? Quinnen Williams, yes. So again, you have a guy like him who you would not have seen. You wouldn't know going into a draft without a college season that he was going to be a good pick. So there is that risk. They might have no games. They might have limited games for college. They might have a couple of all-star games to help go ahead and promote. We don't know what's going to end up happening with college players right now. A lot of them might skip coming out because they're saying, listen, we don't have a year of tape, so let's redshirt and come back next year. So, but I think the crux of this trade was the 2021 draft pick.
Yeah,
I think that helps a little bit of value. There are guys who've already made the decision that they're not even going to play this year. They're just going to train. I forget who it was, but there was at least one star cornerback coming out this year, who might be coming out. Is definitely coming out next year. So a college star. So again, we're going to see a lot of. It might be a hard year for the draft, but we're going to see maybe still potential value in it.
Yeah.
And again, yes, it goes both ways. If there was ever a year to kick the can down the road, I mean, the Seahawks draft pick could be the third overall draft pick because the whole team gets COVID for 3 or 4 weeks. But if the whole team gets COVID for 3 or 4 weeks, it might just end the season right there.
Yeah.
So, outside of that, we also have the C.J. Mosley issue. Now you are missing 2 leaders on defense. Now, Mosley didn't play much last year either.
Literally, well, when he was the best player on the team. Like him getting hurt in the week 1 against Buffalo is what really blew it for them.
So, yeah, they're not going to have him. They're going to have that D-line. They're going to get a little cap space out of that. His contract's going to toll till next year. So there was a little bit of rumors. I think Mr. Bradley McDougall, the new safety, was spreading these rumors. Hey, we have some spots on the team. Let's go get Jadeveon Clowney, right? Yeah. So that would be an interesting addition to that team. Having Jadeveon Clowney to go into the D-line mix on that room, that might help with the loss of Jamal Adams and C.J. Mosley. If you're playing for the future and you're trying to build up assets, you also don't know if there's going to be a cap crunch next year. That might not be the best method.
Yeah.
The other issue that I'm seeing here with the Jets is, the thing I do like is they do have decent safety depth for this year, right? McDougall, Marcus May, Ashton Davis, right?
Right.
Ashton Davis, you could have him line up 3,000 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So you're going to be well set at safety. You're not going to have an elite-level safety who could play nickelbacker if you wanted him to. But it's going to be a weird year. I think it's going to be a developmental year. I think it's going to be a year where we're going to see if they want to stick with Gase or move on.
Spoiler alert, move on.
So, yeah, that I think that's what 2020 is. They want to see what they can get from Gase, if Gase can actually make them competitive. They liked what they saw at the end of the year from Gase. Part of the Jamal Adams thing, and I haven't gotten to talk about this much yet, I just wanted to touch on this a little bit, was they had promised him money early on, then they they backed off on it. And one of the things that came to my attention from one of the articles, that was the one that I think actually the interview with Jamal Adams, Manish Mehta's one, apparently there was a directive from the Johnson brothers to not spend a lot of money or not spend a lot of cash because they were cash strapped. There's a difference between salary cap and cash. Cash is the real money. Cap is the stuff you hear on the internet about, they have $3,000 in cap this year. So there were some issues as far as cash and the amount that they can give away on a guaranteed contract, which is why you saw them go for a lot of Tier 3 and Tier 2 players that just they were not going to be able to, like, they didn't go for anybody big, right? There was a lot of rumors they were going to go for Conklin and throw a lot of money at him. They didn't do that. They went for a lot of, like, tier 3, tier 4, like, players. They kind of went and threw a boatload of guys in there, which might be a smart move in the long run. You never know because guys develop. What are your feelings about the Jets going into this year? Or do you want to move on to your new team, the Bills?
Yeah, I think Jets are going to be bottom feeders, and yes, I'm going with Buffalo. I was thinking about maybe switching to Chicago, but I couldn't do that because, one, I love Aaron Rodgers too much. I can't root against that guy.
He might be on that team next year, too.
The Bill?
Well, Chicago.
Chicago.
Aaron Rodgers might be on that team in a year or two.
That's true. But it's like, but also, I hate the Patriots so much. I want to keep hating New England. So, and 3, it's not a complete bandwagon move because I did live in upstate New York for 3 football seasons. So I actually was watching the Bills instead of the Jets because they were what was on TV.
So there you go. But any last thoughts on the Jets other than the bottom feeder talk or
bottom feeder?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a year where they're trying to see what they have. They're going to have to pay Sam Darnold in the future. Basically, it's going to see what you get from Sam Darnold. That's what this year is. See what you can get from Sam Darnold. See what you have as far as the weapons on the offense. They have Denzel Mims. They have
Crowder. They got Brashad. They got Perriman.
Yeah, so I think those are a lot of interesting pieces. See what they can get out of those guys. They have the tight ends as well. So I kind of like what they have. I think they're going to be – Greg Williams will coach up the defense a little bit.
Greg Williams is the only thing that team has going for it.
Yeah, I think you'll see some steps forwards from some of the D linemen this year. Offensively, you better see a step forward because otherwise Gase is out. So
should have been out midway through last year, but
they've got a brand new O-line. A lot of guys that they signed. A couple guys, they drafted a guy or two as well with and Becton's the star of their draft, right? I thought they had a good draft, so I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be a developmental year for them. I think it's going to get the guys on the field, get some meshing going on, and then next year is going to be the next step forward. Hopefully they get somebody else in there outside of Gase. It just doesn't seem like Gase is the guy. So let's move on, right? We'll talk Buffalo Bills.
Let's go.
Sean McDermott. I'm a huge fan of Sean McDermott. I liked watching their interviews. I like it when Brandon Beane gets on the screen as well. I learned a lot from their draft this year. They are very they come up with unique ways to address issues, right? So I dig it. I like the Bills. They are probably the odds-on favorite for the first time in like 20 years to win this division. Now that there's no Tom Brady with the Patriots, although
Newton.
Patriots have Cam Newton, they did lose a bunch of guys to COVID because of the opt-outs, and we're going to get to that, right? The COVID opt-outs, because there's I think 7 guys opted out for the Patriots. But we'll get into that for a second. With the Bills, Josh Allen needs to take a step forward.
He does.
We saw some good things from him last year, right?
Well, it's like the one thing I like about Josh Allen, which separates him from Sam Darnold is Josh. I'm not going to pretend Josh Allen's great at he could throw deep, but he's not that accurate. But he'll put his body on the line to pick up some extra yards, and you could tell the guy wants to win games.
I mean, he's just built differently than Darnold. He is a little bit more straight line speed heavy. Stronger arm than Darnold, at least deep throw ball. But honestly, Darnold's a very accurate quarterback. So Josh Allen's accuracy kind of went up in the short area game last year, which I think is good. It's my big worry with Josh Allen always was, could he develop in that area? And he's starting to show he can. So with the athleticism, now he's going to be a third year into that offense. The getting used to being able to utilize the short area of the field, and also again building chemistry with some guys. Also, they traded for Stephon Diggs. You got Smokey Brown, John Brown still there, and then Cole Beasley. Yeah, such a sweet little team up of receivers. They got to the playoffs last year with the guys who they had. And now they got more. I think they got more weapons. I think the Bills have more weapons on offense this year. That's the brilliance of it, right?
Also, look for Dawson Knox to
tight
improve.
Yes,
well, it's like the one thing. I was, if you guys know me, I'm an Ole Miss fan.
I was checking to see if you have any Ole Miss gear on you. You don't. God.
He was It's like he's such a contrast from Evan Ingram because he was rarely utilized as a weapon at Ole Miss. It's like obviously we had A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf, but still, but like he actually had like a couple touchdowns this year. He had I've looked his stats up, obviously knowing from watching him play. Also, he never had a receiving touchdown in college and had like 3 last year. So he improved from college to the NFL in that retrospect. I mean, that aspect.
Yeah. Listen, I like Dawson Knox. I think there was a lot. I actually liked a little bit of. I liked him coming out of the draft. Like, I kind of was intrigued by his ability. He had a lot of guys on that team. He was kind of overshadowed by the talent level of that of his team. DK Metcalf, AJ Brown,
DeMarcus Lodge.
Yeah, so you had a lot of receivers on that team that, why am I going to throw it to the tight end? I got a whole bunch of better guys to throw it to.
Exactly.
And he's the good thing is he's not just, a pass-catching tight end. He's also solid in the run game as well.
Like I say, polar opposites from Evan Ingram.
Yeah. So I agree with you there. I think there's something to see with Dawson Knox. They also now have 2 running backs that are going to be intriguing. They got Zach Moss in the draft this year.
Devin Singletary.
Devin Singletary is now into his 2nd year. Both guys can catch, run pass routes, catch the ball out of the backfield. Very different kind of, as far as like Singletary is more like laterally quick, and Zach Moss is more of like the downhill. Like he's going to break tackles. He's more of the Kareem Hunt kind of guy. Very, very intriguing combo of running backs to have, though. I kind of like that. Like they no longer have Frank Gore there, so he's not taking up a spot. He's now moved on to the Jets to hang out with his buddy Adam Gase. I think they have the same birthday or something. They have like the same. They're the exact same age, so they just bond over things like fishing and doing their taxes.
And never winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, never winning a Super Bowl. Bills defense. They did lose Star Lotulelei today from COVID's opt-out. COVID's opt-out, by the way, is the name of my new band. But in the COVID opt-outs, Star Lotulelei, you're seeing a lot more D linemen and offensive linemen do the opt-outs. Why? Because I think they are a little bit more at risk.
They're going to be breathing each other's faces every play.
Yeah, they're going to be up in each other's faces. They're a little bit more at risk. They're heavy bodies. They have higher BMI. And those are risk factors for COVID. So a lot of these guys are probably going, you know what? It's better for, especially like a guy like Star Lotulelei. He's made bank a little bit on that. So he's made some money. He can go ahead and take a year off. I think that's going to be the thing we're going to see with these COVID opt-outs is either the guys who are on the back end of the roster who aren't making much more than what they're already expected to make with the opt-out clause, because it's only like $150,000 in the opt-out clause. With that, they could live for the year and then maybe come back. So you're going to see guys on the back end of the roster do it, and then you're going to see guys who have made their nut do it. The guys who have been in the NFL for about like 5 to 10 years. And that's where Star Lotulelei lands on that. But they got Trey White. Love Trey White. They got an interesting amalgamation of corners with E.J. Gaines, Josh Norman, Levi Wallace. So the guys opposite of Trey White, it's a nice little amalgamation of guys. Poyer and Micah Hyde at
good
safety.
Duo.
Ooh, probably
the best, maybe.
Highly underrated. Yeah. That is the highly underrated. That was the key to, I think, McDermott, coming in there and taking a step forward with that defense was those two guys as a signing. Poyer and Micah Hyde, really good combo as far as safeties go. D-line.
I mean, they've been building that up with the draft. They took Oliver last year. Took Epinesa this year.
Yes. Yeah, so they have some intriguing pieces to it. Nobody, Jerry Hughes, still very good, but he's kind of getting a little bit older now. There's nobody there who truly shocks and awes you, but they just play really well. They get
the job done.
They get the job done. They utilize them well. They signed a couple of guys in free agency as well. I think that the Bills are going to be and I think there's a reason why a lot of people think the Bills are going to be the top end team this year. Their linebackers are athletic. They've got the top end team for the AFC East because they're the most complete one. You saw them get to the playoffs last year, and there's not much standing in their way from being the top of that division, other than the New England Patriots.
Yes.
You want to get into that?
Yeah.
Or last thoughts on the Bills?
Bills, I think you're going to see them back in the playoffs this year if there is a season. So,
yeah.
But I could definitely see them maybe getting like around the same spot they were last year, maybe getting an extra win, maybe going like 11-5. I could see them doing.
I could buy that. Maybe that they do a little bit better. They perform better against maybe a little bit tougher of a schedule. Also, because COVID's going to be a mess anyway. Maybe they learn from their times in the playoffs now. That 1 year in the playoffs, sometimes the following year the team gets a little bit better at handling that big momentum moment of, oh my God, we're in the playoffs. Oh my God. So I agree. I think the Bills are the lead, the top of the AFC East. I agree with you. I think it's going to be. Let's move on to the team that used to be the top of the AFC East.
New England Patriots.
Yes, the New England Patriots, Billy Belichick's team, the sexy check, if you will. No longer with the Tom Brady. No, they've got an odd receiving core. They signed Marquise Lee in the offseason, but now he's opted out on the COVID. They have a lot of guys who've opted out on the COVID, and we'll touch a little bit on a couple of those guys. A lot more on. Let's see. They had a couple. They had Marcus Cannon, the offensive tackle, right? So their offensive line's going to be a little wonky, right? But they still got pieces there with Isaiah Wynn, Joe Thuney. They got a lot of pieces on the O line. I think that the key thing here is the quarterbacks, right?
Right.
Stidham, Hoyer, sexy Hoyer, and of course Superman Cam Newton. I think. I did an episode on Cam Newton and him going there. If he makes the team, if he wins the starting job, if they decide to design an offense for him, they can do a lot with him, and they can kind of play ball control. They could utilize his legs. They could utilize the run game. He's gotten a lot better at short area accuracy. The only worry I have with Cam, and I said this before, is adapting to the playbook when he was signed so late. And by doing that, you're having to adapt to a lot of option routes, being on the same page as the receivers. Now, we saw, Billy O'Brien, who runs a very similar system, kind of adapt his system to Deshaun Watson. So this isn't totally irrelevant. It's not like it can't be adapted to him, but they've got to make the decision to do it. But it's been done.
Thing is, obviously Cam's a lot older than Deshaun Watson is, and when you draft Deshaun Watson, he's there to be your long-term guy, your franchise QB. Cam's just come in there to be a Band-Aid, basically.
This is true. This is very true. What I'll say about that is, you signed him. They signed him to a cheap deal. They got him for peanuts. You have what you have. Are you going to try and go with Stidham and Hoyer? Or are you going to try to be like, hey, we got the sexy, old Super Bowl MVP kind of guy. Let's go ahead and start up the engine on this guy and go. And it's not like McDaniels is not used to having athletic quarterbacks. He's had them before. There was a guy who he drafted in the first round not too long ago that got him to a playoff game who couldn't throw a ball against air.
Tebow?
Yes. I was waiting for some kind of response. Yes, Tebow.
I think McDaniels is out by then, was he?
No, he drafted him. It was his draft, wasn't it?
No, I think he. Oh yeah, no, you're right. That was his draft.
I
was thinking that McDaniels came in 2008, he got fired later that year, but
yeah. So you have a guy who knows a little bit about utilizing the athletic quarterbacks, and I think this is. If they do go with Cam, I think that's their best shot, right? I think that's their best shot to win now. If you are trying, I can understand them being like, listen, we have a lot of guys who run the same system, right? We got a lot of guys who run this system, been here for years, took them years to get onto this. You look at their receiving corps, still very weird, right? N'Keal Harry, who they drafted last year, who kind of didn't really get to play much. Julian Edelman, who's going to be I don't know, is he going to... I mean, granted, they could use him as a QB at some points. He has done that before.
He's like he had the longest touchdown pass in Patriots playoff history the past 20 years.
There you go. Yeah. So Edelman might be the backup at some point or be playing at QB. I like to see him kind of get used to playing with Cam Newton. That's a lot of weapons to have on the field. They still have James White. They still have Sony Michel. Marquise Lee, who they signed in the offseason, he's now opted out of this season. They don't have, what's his name anymore, the deep threat who used to be on the Colts. They don't have him anymore.
Dorsett?
Yes, Dorsett. So there's not as much speed on that team, but I think if you're utilizing the run game and Cam Newton and Sony Michel and the guys who you have on there, plus Rex Burkhead is like a receiving running back as well, who happens to be there to also be a cheerleader sometimes. I don't know. They have a lot of good pieces there. He could be utilized. He also kind of plays slot receiver. Defensively, Dante Hightower is no longer going to be in this year because he opted out. Chung passed on this year. Yep. So they're missing a lot of pieces as far as defense goes. There was some memes going out there about, hey, maybe Belichick's kind of playing the long game here and telling his guys like, hey, take the year off. You guys get to be healthy. We'll come back next year. We'll go ahead and win a Super Bowl. Meanwhile, I get the number one. Get the Trevor Lawrence pick. So I don't know if that's really true. It is kind of funny to think about that. Just Bill Belichick's 20 miles ahead.
40 chess.
He's way ahead of everybody, and he's good. Listen, he's going to be a good coach for as long as he's going to be coaching. Without the pieces that they have, I mean, they still have Gilmore. They still have a lot of their cornerback core. They still have the McCourty brothers. They have the two. Is it Michigan? Michigan, yeah, the two Michigan guys that they've drafted, Chase Winovich and who was the other guy's name? They drafted him this year. I'm sure it'll come to me in 2 seconds. But they got an intriguing D line. They got they have been able to just make. They've been able to do really well with that team. So Bill Belichick always seems to coach around what he's missing. And with the guys that they no longer have Jamie Collins. He left. They lost. The D tackle who used to be on the Browns. Sheldon something. Anyway, they lost him. He's now on the Detroit Lions. That team's going to be hard to watch.
Sheldon Richardson?
No, he's on the Browns. No, the other one, Danny Sheldon. There we go. It always comes to me like 2 seconds in. I guess I start talking about them, and all of a sudden the name it hasn't come to me yet. It's like downloading. There's like a buffer in my head. I'll start talking about somebody.
That dial-up sound going.
Yes, and actually Harry can hear it while he's in the room with me. But I'll start talking about somebody, and I won't have the name in my head. And as I get to the end of the sentence, the name pops in. It's weird. It's such a weird little superpower, or not superpower, kind of stupid. Because what happens when you don't know the name? Then you're stuck talking about not having that dial-up brain. Anyway, again, Patriots are going to be a weird one. Patriots, Jets, and even Miami. All three of these teams are going to be luckily it's COVID year, so it's basically a mulligan anyway.
Yeah,
but. They're kind of in a weird setup. Let's talk about Miami, right? Massive draft haul, right? A lot of weird picks. They got Tua. They got Fitzpatrick. They got Josh Rosen. So the quarterback room kind of cool. Offensive line. I wasn't like a super big fan of any of the picks or free agents that they got for the offensive line. And their offensive line wasn't great last year, but I guess it can only get better. Mm-hmm. Eric Flowers, Hunt, Mark Hunt, who they drafted. Who was the other guy they got? The USC guy. They drafted some offensive linemen, none of whom I was all that intrigued by, or there was other guys who I thought were sexier at the time. Receiving core, they got Devontae Parker, they got Preston Williams. Preston Williams coming off an ACL. I think it's going to be a learning year for Tua. I think they're going to let him sit a little bit, learn the playbook.
Heal up a little bit,
although apparently he's healthy enough to practice and play. I think that it's going to be an interesting team to watch because it's going to be a team that's maybe 2 years out who we're going to be watching in the playoffs next year.
Yeah.
Which, hey, dude, I'm excited. I like
Brian Flores is a good, competent coach.
Yeah, that's what I like. I like seeing good coaches succeed. I like seeing them put their players up a little bit.
People were expecting Miami to get to go 0-16, and what did they end up getting? Like a respectable 4-12?
Yeah, so they ended up winning a couple of games last year towards the end. They ended up being still a top 10 pick, but they weren't the number one overall pick. They got a lot of cool talent in the offseason. Byron Jones. They get Xavier Howard back. They the defense is what's going to be fun. They even drafted Noah Igbahogany. Yes, that the other corner who they drafted in the first round. So they've got depth at corner. I love the defensive concepts that they have with that team, right? They went after a bunch of interesting D linemen with Ogba and Shaq Lawson from the Bills. They have guys already on the team with Wilkins and Gold, whatever. It starts with a gold something, and it's kind of a Gold Schwartz or whatever. They got some intriguing D linemen. They got Kyle Van Noy, who's going to be like that the linebacking pass rusher kind of guy who people thought was going to stick with New England, and then he's like, well, see you later, New England. I'm going to get paid by Miami. So the defense on that team intrigues me. That's the sexy piece, right? Like all the weird, interesting pieces, getting them to gel, all the athleticism, the talent, the ability to play man coverage. I like the Miami's defense. Miami's offense, it's still a little bit of a work in progress, right? Offensive line, probably going to be better. Can't get worse, right? That team was pretty bad last year on the offensive line. Receivers, Devontae Parker's kind of the main dude there. They have Jakeem Grant and a couple of other, lesser known guys there, and then Preston Williams. He's got to come back from injury. They got Mike Gesicki. They kind of need a speed element on offense, but with the way that they're going to be running that offense, it's Chan Gailey. He's going to be running a lot of spread. 4 guys out there, 2 slot receivers, kind of like reminiscent of when Fitzpatrick was with the Jets when they had Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, and they were able to kind of run both those guys out of the slot and just create mismatch issues all over the place. A lot of power run game, but also, again, they trade for Matt Breida, so they got a running back that they didn't have to actually draft, and I think is actually probably better than what they would have gotten any other spot anywhere at that point in the draft. He's a fast little dude, so they're going to be able to utilize him. Overall, Miami's fun and intriguing. I don't think it's going to be this year's their year. I think next year's their year as far as taking a step forward. Offense still needs to kind of gel, and, again, there's a lot of guys that are brand new to that team. Any last thoughts on the Miami Dolphins?
I could see that. Obviously don't see them as a playoff team, but if there is a season, I definitely think they're going to improve. I think maybe the 5 to 6 win ratio.
Oh yeah, they can even be 7-9 or 8-8. I could see them being that hard of an out because again, it's hard to go to Miami.
It is.
It's a hard spot, especially now you can COVID just by walking into Miami.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's hard playing in Miami on a regular season. And it's going to be, because it's hot down there, they seem to have a really good home field advantage. They are a hard team to beat out. And with that being said, I think they're going to be an 8-8 team. I think they're going to be a hard out. Their defense, again, if their defense is all totally healthy, that is an impressive defense. And intriguing, too. So, AFC East, let's talk it. Let's break it down.
All right, so do this new standing prediction?
Yeah.
All right. Bottom of the barrel, Jets. I think Miami is going to be number 3 in the division. And number 2 with the wild card, I'm thinking Bills. Listen, Bills are my team, but they got a former MVP. I think an improvement at the quarterback position. Yes, Pat's lost some guys to COVID, but if anybody can make gold out of shit, it's Bill Belichick. I think Patriots aren't going anywhere.
No more doubt for the Billy Belichick here on the podcast. Oh, finally. All right. I got to agree with you a little bit on Jets being 4, right? It's just of the teams, they have the least amount of talent, right? That's just kind of how it goes. It doesn't mean that they can't do well.
And the worst coach.
I'm trying to do the calculations in my head right now. Yeah, you're right. Flores, McDermott, and Belichick are all really good coaches. Gase, even if you are a Gase fan, you can't argue that Gase is better than those 3 guys. So maybe you could argue Flores, but I really don't think so.
Not Flores.
All right. So yeah, I agree with you, man. So yes, Jets at the bottom. I agree with you there. Miami is 3. I think it's going to be another
significant improvement.
Yeah, I do think they're going to make significant improvement. I agree with you there. I think it's going to be Patriots 2, Bills 1.
I hope you're right.
I believe in Sean McDermott. I believe in the talent that's on that team. I believe in the development that's on that team. And also just because there's a lot of, Belichick, I think will still get a 9-win season out of this team or a 10-win season. But I think that's just my belief in what I've seen with a lot of those players on the Bills defense and what I think the Bills can get out of their offense, I think the Bills can be a very competitive team this year. And they added. It's actually, I think of the 4 teams, the one team that I felt like that was already good and improved was the Bills. So, Patriots, no matter what you think, they took a step back, right? They lost players. They lost players to the opt-out. They lost players because of free agency. And because of all those losses and because of the cap issues they were having, they're kind of stuck. Now, granted, you're right. Cam Newton's the fucking wrench. He destroys the whole thing. He makes you go, I have no clue. So I'll give you that. And Belichick can screw at me all day. Belichick will probably end up winning the Super Bowl this year because it's COVID and everybody else gets COVID, but he found a vaccine and gave it to all his players. He could have started COVID. That could have totally been his thing.
The hoodie makes you immune to the Rona.
That's how it goes. Now on to the NFC East, right? The teams of the NFC East, the Washington team, who does not have anything other than the Washington team in their title for some reason. Although
no, football. They have football in their title.
Washington football team. That's true. You were right.
It's what sports journalists have been calling them the past 10 years anyway. So
yeah, pretty much. Anybody who's been like, I don't want to be caught saying those words. Actually, it's weird. Like when you go down Roto World, it was I think I remember mentioning with like the LA Rams when they changed their logo, I get confused. Now I get confused when I see the W just randomly in the middle of Roto World's logos. But yeah, they got the Washington football team, the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants, right?
Yep.
All right, so let's. I think the team to start out with would be the New York Giants, right? We're in the Jersey area. We're both not that far. Well, you're New York, but we're both not that
right
far.
By the border, so
we're not that far from the. We're recording this in New Jersey,
right?
We're not that far from the Meadowlands. Let's talk about the New York Giants. New head coach with Joe Judge. Nate Solder's opted out of his contract this year for COVID. So, good thing is they drafted 2 offensive tackles, Matt Pert and Andrew Thomas, Alabama offensive lineman and Connecticut offensive lineman. So, they're going to get some real usage out of those guys they drafted. They drafted
the
also
safety.
Xavier McKinney.
Yep.
Second round guy.
They got first round talent in the second round, so.
Yeah, so with Joe Judge, here's what I've noticed. The new head coaches, the guys who've never coached before, are going with the 90-man rosters, right? So with the NFL in their training camp, you have up till August 16th. You could either do an 80-man roster right now or a 90-man roster, and then you have to cut it down August 16th. And what you do is you have to split the field, basically. You have two basic setups if you're doing the 90-man, whereas everybody could practice together if it's the 80-man roster. All the new head coaches, including Joe Judge, Matt Rule, and Kevin Stefanski, went with the 90-man roster, right? I think that's interesting. They seem to be the main ones doing it. I haven't heard of anybody else doing it yet. But so Joe Judge has gone with the 90-man roster. They have, offensive line-wise, they still have Will Hernandez. They still have Zeitler. I like the offensive line. Even without Nate Solder, honestly, Nate Solder was not all that good. So Andrew Thomas might be an improvement right away. Now you get to keep Andrew Thomas on the left side anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to walk into this with, hey, we get to keep Andrew Thomas. He's going to be our left tackle, and now we have to switch him from the right side to the left side to the right side to the left side, and we're not worrying about it. Now you know Andrew Thomas is playing left tackle. Pert's going to have to get up to speed playing right tackle in the NFL, or maybe somebody else who they might have. I know they also decided to sign a tackle in the offseason, former Cowboy. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. We'll touch base on him in a little bit. So offensive line-wise, it actually might not be much worse than it was last year. It might even be better. Receiving talent, right? They got Darius Slayton.
Golden Tate,
Sterling Shepard, basically the same guy, different genres of them. Both kind of slot receiver, but quick, not super fast, but quick. Guys, Golden Tate's more like a running back, whereas Sterling Shepard's kind of the little bit more slender. More slender.
Probably the way.
Slender. He's slender. Anyway, so Darius Slayton, though, I liked what I saw from Darius Slayton last year, man. Big dude. Has 4.3 wheels, can play on the outside. I think that was an interesting piece to get last year, and he's kind of shown he's maybe the guy who makes me feel like Dave Gettleman's not totally bad at drafting. Daniel Jones is going to be in year 2, right? Athletic, showed a little bit. He's kind of, I said before, and I said it again, he's Ryan Tannehill. Like, that's what he reminds me of. Athletic, not the strongest, not a cannon for an arm, but solid arm. And if he develops, he will be a solid starter. I don't think he's going to be the world beater. He's not going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's not going to be Drew Brees. But he can be a player that will be good, right? He can maybe be like in the Alex Smith Tannehill spectrum, if that's a spectrum you want to be on. You surround him with talent, he might get you there. You have Evan Ingram. I think Evan Ingram,
if he could stay healthy,
is going to be again. He's a
listen. When he's healthy, he is the best tight end in that division.
That's true. Well, I don't know.
I'm saying better than Zach Ertz.
I was going to say Dallas Goddard, like the dog from Jimmy Neutron. Yes. But I think different types of tight ends. Like tight end is like its own. They now make different breeds of tight end. They're not all the same. He is a more unique receiving threat than Dallas Goedert. I think I depending on what kind of system you want to run, you might like Dallas Goedert better. You might like Zach Ertz a little bit better. I actually don't. I think Zach Ertz is kind of more the in between of those two. Sticking with the Giants though, right? And they have Saquon, hopefully healthy this year.
Yes.
Again, very athletic, big dude with speed. And some of the videos I've seen, man, he's just jumping out of the pool, like just whoosh, and going. How do you do that? How do you jump out of a pool like that? He doesn't make it. He's like box squat setup, and he jumps out of the pool. I'm just saying this guy's got more torque in his legs than some cars do. This guy, he's a battering ram. So, I'm intrigued to see what he gets to do. Hopefully, Joe Judge utilizes him in a way that you could utilize his receiving ability and his running ability, right? Use those wheels. The big question is Jason Garrett as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
We have not seen this for a while. And there's a reason why Jason Garrett doesn't have a job. Now, granted, we have not seen Jason Garrett as a coordinator for a while. Yes. So, I'm more speculative on this. This is actually, I think the reason why I'm a little less bullish on Joe Judge is maybe the hirings he did than necessarily, him particularly. I'm interested in seeing what they can get out of this team. I honestly don't know what scheme or system they're going to really try to go for either. Like, it really is kind of a blank check going in. I like a lot of the pieces. Yeah. Like, I'll honestly say, could they use some more receiving talent? Sure. But receiving, like, offensively, I kind of like it. Like, I like Zeitler. I like Hernandez. Mm-hmm. I loved Andrew Thomas coming out. I watched Pert's tape. Pert was kind of a fourth-round guy to me. Kind of went in the right spot, though. So I like the team. Let's talk about defense, right? Defensively speaking, they're going to get Marcus Golden back. They also got Fackrell for pass rushers. So, because what they did with Golden is they hit him with with a special tender that he had to sign with another team by a certain point, just so they can keep the. Basically, he got stuck. He had to sign with another team by July 24th. Otherwise, he had to re-sign with the Giants. He hasn't signed anywhere else. Now he's going to probably be a Giant for this tender. So he came back today. He's joining the team. So you have a couple of interesting pass rushers with Marcus Golden, and they got Fackrell, who they signed in the offseason to a one-year deal. D-line, man, they've invested heavily on D-line. Dalvin Tomlinson, who are the other? They got like 60. B.J. Goodson, Leonard Williams. I think there's like 32 D linemen on this team. It was all D linemen at one point. It's all what's his name would spend draft picks on. So they got a lot of defensive linemen. Corner is going to be interesting because DeAndre Baker's on the commissioner's exempt list. They did sign Xavier McKinney. They drafted him in the second round, like we were talking about before. He's going to be an important piece. They also signed James Bradbury out of Carolina.
They got Jabril Peppers.
Jabril Peppers I love. By the way, like this is a pro Jabril Peppers podcast.
That's right. He was with Cleveland before.
He was in Cleveland. He's also a Jersey guy.
Yeah.
I like Jabril Peppers. I actually think he's more talented than Landon Collins, and he's kind of when they lost Landon Collins and they traded for him, I actually thought it was kind of not an upgrade per se. Depends on how you're utilizing your safeties, and Jabril Peppers has kind of showed up. So I like what they have at safety. They're going to run a lot of 3 safety looks. They're going to run a lot of nickel. He can basically play nickel linebacker hybrid. Really good at shutting down running backs and tight ends. I just think they have so many good pieces as far as the defense goes. They drafted Beal in the supplemental draft a couple years ago. He's coming back. I think they did plan on having Baker this year because they drafted him last year. Hopefully, his situation gets resolved and maybe he can come back at some point during the season. Currently, again, like I said before, on the commissioner's exempt list. They were way more interested in utilizing the commissioner's exempt list this year. I heard more players get listed on that this year than I've heard in previous years past for off the field issues. It sounds like it's a way to avoid necessarily having to deal with these off the field incidences, if you will, especially with what was going on with DeAndre Baker with what was alleged anyway. Let's talk about you have any other comments, questions, dirty jokes on the Giants?
None whatsoever.
We're gonna be learning as much as we can with the Giants going into this year.
I could see them being like 7-9 or 8-8. I think they're going to get a little.
I could see them being anywhere. I could see them being like a 4-12 team. I could see them being a 9-7 team because it's such a
division's such a crapshoot this year. Like,
the one thing is, I think there's 2 teams in their division that are definitely better, right?
Yeah,
that are in a better situation. I also think that it's a first-year head coach that didn't have an off season really. That you're coming in with not a lot of run-up time. So guys are coming in and they didn't get really to practice in the scheme, especially depending on what kind of scheme you're going to want to run. It's going to take time to even build up the defense and their defensive scheme. So I think the first year is going to be a rough go of it, especially with COVID for the Giants. I think the Giants are going to have a hard time going of it. So let's talk about the next team right now. Pick Washington or Dallas.
God dang it, let's go with the Cowboys.
The Cowboys. I think a lot of people feel like they are the favorites for this division. I don't agree.
It's like they did arguably have the best draft out of
They had a really good draft. They drafted talented guys. They are missing some pieces, though.
Yeah. Travis Frederick retired. They lost Byron Jones in free agency.
Their cornerback room's kind of a weird mess. They got Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis.
Drafted Trayvon Diggs.
They drafted Trayvon Diggs, brother of Stephon Diggs. That always has to be mentioned no matter where you go. Brother of Stephon Diggs.
Not related to Keandre Diggs or Quandre Diggs.
They're not. That's like not a whole family. That's not an NFL family?
Nope.
That's not a dynasty, Diggs dynasty. Wouldn't you watch that show, Diggs Dynasty?
Diggs Dynasty, but Keandre Diggs, he is brothers with Quentin Jammer, former defensive back for the San Diego, now LA Chargers. So there's another useless fact for you.
I did not know that one. All right, so yes, defensively, I feel weird with that team. They lost Robert Quinn. They didn't really get a new pass rusher in the door. Michael Bennett retired. Basically, they got Tank Lawrence. That's it. They got DeMarcus Lawrence. The rest of that defensive line's a little shaky, right? They did draft guy out of Oklahoma this year. I can't remember
CeeDee Lamb. We're talking about
I was talking about defensively, but yeah.
So, guy they drafted out Oklahoma. I'm thinking CeeDee.
Yes, CeeDee Lamb. Well, let's talk about CeeDee Lamb. I think receiving core, though, man, if there's a talented receiving core in the NFL,
Michael Gallup is their third best receiver.
That is awesome. By the way, Michael Gallup was so underrated. The fact that he fell to them in the third round a couple of years ago, now he is part of a receiving core that is intriguing as fuck. You've got Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. I thought Michael Gallup was going to be part of the trade package to go after Jamal Adams. Yeah. And honestly, I found out from Dallas people that they value him way more than a first rounder. Dallas people love him.
Yeah.
So there you go. Michael Gallup's really good. he's going to probably play on the outside, and they're going to probably switch between Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, who's going to play between the slot and flanker. And honestly, they're going to utilize all three of them in different formations. Whether they're going to be, I don't think anybody on this team is going to be purely out of the slot. If there's one guy out of the three receivers that'll probably be more out of the slot than everybody else, it's probably going to be CeeDee Lamb, just because he's going to be acclimating to the NFL. Man, that's going to be a talented receiving core. That's going to be hard to fight off. And that might be able to help with the missing Travis Frederick issue, right?
Yeah.
Because they still have the rest of their offensive line. La'el Collins has developed.
They still got Zach Martin. They still got Tyron Smith.
Yeah, Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, Connor Williams. Center's going to be a question mark, though. There is still, they have Connor McGovern, who's a guy who they drafted a couple years ago. They also have they drafted Tyler Biadasz, who going into the year was considered like an almost borderline first round guy. So offensive line, yeah, the tackles are good. Guard situation's pretty decent. I mean, Zach Martin's an all-pro, and then Williams is okay, and then it's going to be a rotation of three guys at center. Who's going to win that job? So offensive line might take a step back just because center's not the most important position on the offensive line, but for them, missing out on having, you could see the difference from when they had Travis Frederick and when they didn't have Travis Frederick. They had a bigger issue not having Travis Frederick. I still think they're going to be competitive as hell.
Yeah.
With that offensive line, with those receivers, with Zeke Elliott, who's just going to be
how did I forget about Zeke when we were talking about all their great offensive line, receiving core of their draft?
Dude, it's going to be so easy for him. Now, here's a hint to my fantasy thing. He's in the top 2 for me in fantasy.
Yeah,
going into this year,
as he should be.
Okay, good. I have somebody I agree with. Eventually, I keep on saying eventually we're gonna talk about fantasy on this podcast. Yeah. It's such a weird year for fantasy too. I just feel so worried about talking about it, and then everybody's like, "Oh, this guy opted out." So let's go ahead and break down into it. And their linebacking core is pretty interesting too. They got Leighton Vander Esch, although he has a neck issue. There might be questions with him. Jalen Smith. They got Sean Lee, who they brought back. They got a decent linebacking core. New head coach in Mike McCarthy, but not new. He's like certified pre-owned new, right?
Right.
You get him without having to spend heavy on him. And actually, I think it's probably the reverse. They probably had to spend heavy on him to get him. But he comes in. He spent his year off learning about how to, be analytical in his game planning. He spent his year off kind of developing his game plan. They got Nolan in there as the defensive coordinator. They kept Kellen Moore to be the offensive coordinator. So there's a little bit of familiarity with the team and the coaching staff. I definitely like where this team is going. Like, it is fun. I would not be shocked to hear that they're in the playoffs this year. Granted, COVID. We have to kind of keep on. I have to stop mentioning COVID just so we could get through everything without having to mention COVID.
Yeah.
I would not be shocked if they are a wild card spot. I wouldn't be shocked if they were in the playoffs because they were doing well, but I just think defensively they're missing a couple of pieces.
Yes.
Let's talk Washington, and then we'll round it out with the Eagles. Yes.
Washington football team.
The McSnyders, as they've gotten known as on this podcast. Yes, the Dan McSnyder team, changing the name, having issues with the trademark, all that's off the field, and then also some apparently sexual harassment issues as well. That's not even dating back to the old thing with the cheerleaders that were a couple years ago as well. Washington's been basically a dumpster fire of, oh my God, that's horrible for a long time.
Yeah.
And at least now they're changing the name. So let's talk about the weapons they have on this team. Defensive line is it is hot, man. That is a fun D line.
Jonathan Allen, Chase Young.
Kerrigan.
Yeah, Kerrigan.
Daron Payne. This is just it's a fun, sexy D line. Everybody, they got pieces galore. Matt Ioannidis. They have a good rotation. It is. Whoo. Yo, if there's one good thing about this team, it's D-line. There's nothing else good about this team, but it's the D-line. But without ragging on them some more. Linebacking core, they might get Reuben Foster back. He tore his ACL last year. He's constantly been injury prone.
Has Reuben Foster even played a game for them?
I don't know. Yeah, because he tear his ACL.
Oh, that's true. Could have done in practice.
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think, because I remember he was a rookie for the Niners. They traded him. They cut him because of the domestic violence thing. Washington picked him back up and
just showing you more of the Washington fire.
Yep.
All right. Well, so linebacking core is not really all that sexy. Safeties, they got rid of the corner that was on the team. They had an okay draft. It was actually one of the teams that I felt like had maybe one of the lesser, outside of Chase Young, was not the best team as far as drafting goes. They got Antonio Gandy Golden. They got like a couple of interesting guys like offensively in the draft. Nobody who I thought was truly a game changer. Maybe like more of a weapon or a piece. Antonio Gibson. They did draft Sadiq Charles to be the replacement of Trent Williams. That's probably not going to go super well. They have the Brandon Sheriff on the franchise tag. That's going to go okay. Like, Sheriff's probably the best piece of that offensive line now. Dylan Moses, hopefully he bounces back this year. He had a rough year last year. The rest of that offensive line, though, is kind of question mark galore. So this went from a team that had a really good offensive line to a lot of question marks. Receiving core, I like Terry McLaurin.
He's good.
He's one of my favorite players right now. There's not much else there that makes me feel comfortable. Their quarterback room's a quarterback room. It's got Alex Smith, who is coming back off
Kyle
Allen, who is probably actually got the luckiness of being around Ron Rivera for a few years and his coaching staff. That's the thing. I think coming in here, the one strength they come in with is that the coaching staff has been together before, right? You got Ron Rivera. You got guys who know him. You got the Norv Turner's son now kind of running the offense, Scott Turner, who was with Ron Rivera down in Carolina. He also knows Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen was with them in Carolina. They traded for Kyle Allen. So they have a guy coming in who already knows the offense. They got Dwayne Haskins, who they drafted last year, and then they have Alex Smith, who maybe has a leg to stand on.
Is out of his mind to be coming back.
And also, take the year off, take the COVID money.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you want to get back on the field as soon as you can, but so yeah, the three quarterbacks all kind of interesting. I like some of the stuff I saw from Dwayne Haskins eventually at the end of last year, but I'm not really sold on him. This could be a total shit show. I mean, and honestly, there was question. Honestly, I was shocked that they're not forcing Dan Snyder's hand like they did with Richardson down in Carolina. That was my first thought when everything came out about the McSnyder team with the sexual harassment allegations. My first thought was, well, that's another team Ron Rivera went to where the owner got fired from his own team, which only time one of the few places you could pull that off, getting fired from your own team. Cornerbacks, they got rid of Josh Norman, Quandre Diggs. Who was that? No, it was the other guy. Who was the other guy who went to Seattle who also got in trouble with DeAndre Baker?
Not sure.
We will get back to you on that, folks. Yeah, so they had another piece that got they were missing a lot of corner pieces. Defensively, they're going to be relying heavily on that D line. Outside of that, I'm not excited to watch Washington football ever, and I'm even less so now. So, although, again, love Ron Rivera.
And I love the name The Football Team.
The Washington Football Team. They could just do a football as their logo. What would be your favorite name for the new Washington team?
Let's see here. I was thinking Washington Bullets, that's what their basketball team used to be. Just to do it, just have everything come full
sell
circle.
It back out.
Full circle.
All right. We're done with Washington. The Eagles. The Eagles. The Eagles. All right. I think Philadelphia is the top of this division.
Agreed.
Offensive line's good. Now, they did lose Brandon Graham to tearing his ACL.
They have the two best quarterbacks in the division.
Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. Arguably, I actually am not disagreeing with you there, right? I'm trying to think. I definitely think Who else?
When healthy, Carson Wentz is top 5 in the league.
I love Carson Wentz. I actually do. Now, granted, we're ginger, so we kind of we have biases here. Yeah. We are always forward with our bias, though. We tell you when we're biased on something.
And I remember when we did the podcast on draft night, I was saying Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in that draft. So.
I wouldn't. Listen. I actually could. I think there was a lot of teams that could have used Jalen Hurts way more than needed. I don't know. So okay, I agree with you there. I think their quarterback room is probably the best in this division, hands down. Offensive line, they got Jason Peters. They got Jason Kelce. They have Jason Peters coming back to play right guard, and then Andre Dillard's going to be playing left tackle. They did lose like one of the best guards, actually probably the best guard in the division, or second best. I think it is impressive with Brandon Sheriff and Zach Martin in that division. Also have Brandon Brooks in that division, and he tore. I think either his Achilles or his ACL.
Lane Johnson
on the other side. He didn't opt out, but he's on the COVID exempt list. So he apparently has COVID.
Oh shit!
Or may have COVID.
Get well soon.
I could be wrong on that though. They could have just I don't. So offensive line, still good offensive line. They also drafted 2 guys with Prince Tega Winogo and Drac Driscoll, both guys out of Auburn. Defensively, right? They signed Javon Hargraves in free agency, former Steeler. They have Derek Barnett. Maybe they get now into the later years on him. Their defense is pretty dang good with Fletcher Cox, right? Got to love him as a defensive lineman there. I think they still have Malik Jefferson on this team. They have a deep D-line. They have no problem spending money on D-line. Now, they're going to get hit with their cap next year. There's actually a lot of questions about that, especially with the cap crunch, how they're going to handle that. And you'll restructure contracts and figure it out down the line. Defensive line's very good. Brendan Graham, still there too. They gave him an extension a year or 2 ago. So their D-line is set. Probably one of maybe the best D-line in that division.
Yep.
Oh, wait, no. Well, we just talked about Washington.
I still let them have that.
I think it's arguable, though.
Yes.
I think it's arguable. Yeah. Linebacking core is not sexy, but their corners have gotten better, right? They traded for Darius Slay. They're going to hope Jalen Mills can move to safety. They didn't draft a corner in this draft, right? If I can't remember correctly. I don't remember. They didn't spend a high pick on a corner. They did draft a lot of receivers. In fact, they went for Jalen Reagor. Then they went ahead and drafted Quez Watkins.
A lot of people were expecting them to take CeeDee Lamb, but their division rival Cowboys got.
Yep, they did not get to take CeeDee Lamb. There were some questions whether they were trading up to get CeeDee Lamb or the other one. Who was the other guy? Oh, Henry Ruggs was the other one people were talking about because they were looking for speed on that offense. And they definitely addressed it this offseason with speed, right? They traded for Marquise Goodwin. He actually opted out for this season because he's got a...
I forgot they still have Deshaun Jackson, who did quote Hitler the couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that went over so well, Deshaun. Maybe not do that.
Here's a little advice. Is like under no circumstances do you have to hand it to Hitler.
No,
ever.
No. Well, maybe you can hand him the gun when he. Never mind. I
don't think I'd trust Hitler with a gun though.
That's true. Maybe the cyanide capsule. Back to football. A lot of speed. They wanted to address speed. Jalen Reagor's very fast. Quez Watkins is fast. Marquise Goodwin they intended to bring in as far as the trade goes. He was fast, but now opted out. Still have Deshaun Jackson. They also still have technically Alshon Jeffrey on the team. He's not fast, but he is he's kind of a basketball player playing football kind of deal. They also have, and if he can't play, they also have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who hopefully in year 2 will take a step forward. I think he's going to be the eventual replacement for Alshon Jeffrey. They also have maybe the best tight end tandem in the NFL with
Goddard and Ertz.
Goddard maybe I think might be a top 5 tight end in the NFL eventually, if he's not already. I do think he's a really good tight end. And I'm not just talking about his butt. And then running back, they got Miles Sanders, who is fast, who is quick. He seemed to develop as a running back last year. They got rid of Jordan Howard. He's now
Boston Scott also.
Boston Scott came on last year. Boston Scott's been around, but I mean,
week 17 went to that game. He scored with 2-3 touchdowns or so.
He did. He did really well. He's good catching out of the backfield. He's quick. He's very quick. He was one of the fastest pieces of that offense that game because they had no other speed guys, and also because Miles Sanders was kind of dealing with an injury that week. So running back core, interestingly good, not spectacular, but Miles Sanders might be the bell cow there. So that's a good thing to keep an eye on. Boston Scott, very fun little piece guy, kind of can be good pass catcher out of the backfield. Can even kind of play receiver
replacement.
Yeah, basically. I think this is the team to beat.
Me too.
NFC East. I think
Cowboys have I think they have more pieces, but I think when Carson Dak's a very good quarterback, but when Carson Wentz is on, he's a great quarterback.
Yeah, the way I look at it is that when you look at the weaknesses of each team, right? What's the real weakness of the Philadelphia Eagles?
A receiver, maybe.
Maybe, but not really, because they went ahead and attacked receiver a little bit in free agent in the draft. So, and you have guys coming back from injury, so they might not be that much of a problem. Especially if you're hoping Jalen Reagor plays really well. When you look at defense, corner on the other side from Slay, maybe linebacker, maybe safety. I don't. It's really not like their defense isn't horrible. They got depth on the D line. They have really good strengths and not a lot of weaknesses.
Right.
And Dallas has some weaknesses. Washington's pretty much most weakness except for D line, and then Giants are weird. So let's do our countdown. Let's do the roll down. Right, 4, 3, 2, 1, and where do you think?
I think last place is going to be the Washington football team again.
Tis agreed.
I think there will be improvement because Ron Rivera is a good no-nonsense guy. Dwayne Haskins is going to be in year 2, but I still see them. I think number 3 spot, Giants, another team I think is going to improve, but just won't be a playoff team. Like I said, around 7-9 range, I could see them going.
This is agreed. I get you there.
Cowboys, I think, are going to be number 2. They're going to be. I think they'll make the playoffs. Get a wild card spot, but I think Philly's taking the division this year.
I think we match up perfectly. I agree with you. I think Washington, Giants, then it goes to Dallas, and then Eagles, top of the ring. I do think there is a possibility that the Giants are worse than Washington. I think Giants are maybe the wild card for at least they could even. I don't know. I don't think they'll be better than the Dallas Cowboys, but they have the wild card there in that division. I think Eagles are straight up the top one in that division. I think Dallas has some very unique, interesting strengths, but their defense is a big question mark. So, yep, that's the East for everybody. If you want to follow the podcast at Draftvice on Twitter, at Draftvice_football on Instagram, you can follow Harry
on Harry Van Ness.
On Harry Van Ness? Yes.
Today.
And you can follow me at Brojo Death Punch. That's BROJO. Death is in the end of life. Punch.
Fruit punch.
Yes, that is a thing. Fruit punch is a thing.
You're always like violence, but by punching somebody. But I'm like, what about the drink? People
the
can't
delicious drink you drink in the summer.
Exactly.
Yes.
So go enjoy some fruit punch, kids.
Yes, or punch a grandma. I don't know. Don't punch any grandmas. Also,
it's
follow,
okay
subscribe.
To punch a grandma if she's not wearing a mask or saying the N-word at Walmart. Then it's okay. But
exactly, follow, subscribe. Find us somewhere on the Intergrams. And yes, and take care. Go check out the other video we did where we talked about the AFC North and NFC.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.